On Thursday, 6th of May, people in Hollingdean and Stanmer ward can vote in a by-election for a new ward councillor. I'm local democracy reporter Sarah Booker-Lewis, and I'm putting questions from the public to Green candidate Zoë John. Why do you want to be a city councillor for Hollingdean and Stanmer, Zoe?
Well, thank you for asking me to come and speak to you firstly, but really the reason that I want to stand is because I've been fuelled by watching central government's handling of the last year and the continuing delivery of policies and actions that don't consider most people, let alone consult us on what's actually happening. And I got really bored of being cross, and I wanted to put that energy into something positive. Standing for me, it's about my community. I live here. I have done for nearly a decade. My children go to school here. I'm connected to the community in different activities and community projects. And really because I feel like I want to be a voice for everyone. And that's why I want to be a city councillor.
And what do you think you'll bring to this role?
Well, I'm not a politician. I'm an academic by trade. I'm a researcher in human-centred design, which is where you put people at the centre of like any decision making or any research around them. So you really put people at the forefront. I want to make sure that the council does this too. We all have different lived experiences. We can't know what somebody else's lived experience is. So it's vital that we don't put people into little categories based on our assumptions, our experiences, or just because it's easier, or because we just haven't actually even asked them. So I'll bring my knowledge of that and my experience as a local resident too, to be the voice for the ward of, over the development of our city, on our community, but also for our futures.
What understanding do you have of the struggles children, young people and adults and all their families face because they have additional needs or a disability?
So it's exceptionally important that we support our SEND community through any of the challenges that they face. The most important thing I think that we can do is to listen and to act on the requests from the families for the best interests of all parties. The council has currently taken steps to work really closely with families and to understand their needs, but we can always do more. And it's really important that we learn from past mistakes, like the homes to school transport debacle, which was rightly challenged by the Greens.
And to what extent do you support the trend of building more homes on busy, polluted roads, exposing more people to this pollution?
As a first step, I think we should be really focusing on reducing pollution levels by encouraging greater take-up of public transport, cycling and walking, and supporting the move to more electric vehicles. And that not only supports reducing pollution, but it's great for us, it's great for our health, it's great for our sense of well-being too. In Brighton and Hove, we are constrained by our position between the sea and the downs, which limits where we can build. And sadly, we do have a housing crisis. The Greens are committed, though, to delivering 800 new council homes by 2023, but making sure that those homes are the best that they can be, not just for the residents, but for the whole community too.
And how can you ensure that residents of the Saunders Park area don't get forgotten, as the area is very seldom mentioned or factored into Hollingdean and Stanmer ward? There are no meeting spaces, no focus or strategy for the area, and it is very densely packed.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I'm so sorry that that's how people feel about it. That can make you feel really disengaged generally, so I am so sorry. One of the reasons that I'm running is because I want to contribute towards making sure that everyone has a voice, and being that voice at council or in a wider scale for them. Greens are investing £3 million in a parks refurbishment programme, though, for the city, which includes Saunders Park. And if elected, I would work with the current councillors, Martin and Teresa, and City Parks officers too, to ensure that the voices and the needs and the concerns, which is a really important aspect, your needs need to be met, but you also need to be heard on your concerns. of the local community, and make sure that all those things are central to the plans of development going forward too.
How do you think a park and ride scheme, as suggested by the Climate Assembly, could be implemented in Brighton and Hove?
Well, it's a really controversial issue in the city. It's important to understand that this was a suggestion by the Climate Assembly, so it is really important that we investigate the pros and cons. And given that the ultimate goal is of becoming carbon neutral by 2030, that's the focus. But park and ride might not deliver the shift towards active travel and public transport though. So it's a very complex thing, and we need to be working on it, and we need to be addressing it to see. The first thing would to be a consultation, research to see whether it would be a good next step. And one of those first things would be to tackle where it is located and a thorough exploration of how that would impact on the location that it's sat into.
And what would you like to do to improve transport equality for the city's 40% of households who don't have access to a car?
Well, I think the Greens' commitment to improving walking and cycling infrastructure is really important. And it was great to receive new funding for the new cycle lanes, and they are being constantly improved, because I know there is a lot of tension around those as well. But feedback is being taken on board, and they are being improved to work for everyone on the roads. And having safe infrastructure is crucial to enable all of us, those of us who drive as well, to be able to travel by foot and by bike. I'd also continue cooperating with the bus companies, as we have done as Greens, to improve accessibility to public transport in the city, with particular emphasis on areas that have limited car ownership, like Upper Hollingdean. I think we have about 40% of our households there don't have car ownership. So the infrastructure needs to work for them too, and something like buses and the frequency of bus and the engagement with buses, for example, in Hollingdean, and making sure those services can be accessed by all.
Our playgrounds are dated and some of the equipment is broken. How will you champion improving play areas for children?
Ultimately, I think they need more funding. So I'm really pleased that Greens are investing in a playground refurbishment programme. And having little children myself, I know that outdoor play is critical. But outdoor play doesn't need to just look like playgrounds. It can be access to open green spaces, woodlands, and things like play streets, which is something that we do on our road, and my kids absolutely love it. So if elected, I will absolutely champion all outdoor play generally, and explore how we can make initiatives like street play easier for communities to organise and take ownership of.
There are no youth clubs in the area. What would you do to give teenagers something to do?
Youth work is about more than buildings. And while we don't have youth clubs in the ward, the council funds the Trust for Developing Communities to provide youth work in the area. So working together with the Trust, I would look to consult with teenagers and families, giving them a voice in what they'd like to do. It's no point I'm not a teenager anymore. It's no point in me saying what they'd like to do. So I think it's really important that we engage with them. And thanks to Green councillors, we are investing more funding in youth services across the city as a whole too.
What action will you take to tackle dog waste on our streets?
Yeah, it's one of my biggest bugbears. I cannot bear getting home and finding that I have pushed my buggy through some. As a ward councillor, I'll help with residents contacting the environmental enforcement team if they're consistent offenders, and they can issue fines if it's a really big problem. I'll support residents, of course, in requesting more bins, but also trying to understand the wider behaviour and tackle why people aren't picking it up and what we can actually do about that, I think.
And what are you going to do about the problems of missed rubbish collections and people dumping their rubbish in communal bins?
Oh, yeah. So I would continue to work on the City Clean Modernisation Programme, which is really trying to get to the nub of that and deal with it, as we're all affected by missed collections. But I'd also continue to raise these collections as and when they happen on behalf of residents. So it's not just one or the other. Fly tipping too can cause all sorts of issues. So I'd actively look for solutions such as CCTV cameras to address the problem. I'm thrilled that Greens have put money into improving the amount of plastics that we can recycle and exploring food waste collections too. And hopefully some of that can balance some of those other things.
What will you do to make yourself known as an active part of the community?
Well, I mean, I'm already active within the community. I've co-founded a local community garden. I'm involved in our street play. I'm an active parent. I've set up local sort of informal neighbourhood watch schemes. And I continue this, but I guess I'd scale it up across the whole community, across the whole ward. For me, being a councillor is about doing the work, actually doing it, and making actions, making a difference to our community. So whether that's just like litter picking in Bates Estate, or we've been talking about volunteering in Hollingdean Community Corner, or just listening to residents at like community events like Lucky Dip in Hollingdean, I think all of those things scaled will contribute to that.
Zoë John, Green candidate for Hollingdean and Stanmer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.